Hello and welcome back to Crew Call with the Scooters. I am so excited to announce and introduce our next guest, who is a Pittsburgh artist. Her name is Linda Barnicott. Linda, thank you so much for being here today.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Courtney. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have had, let's just, dive right into this because look at the amazing work behind you and you have had quite
My studio.
exactly, you've had quite the career. So where's your studio at actually since we're since
I
we're
am
still there?
actually, we are living in our forever home in Brentwood.
Great.
And the reason I say that is because we always lived in church houses. My husband is a retired minister.
Oh, interesting.
This is like our real house.
That's awesome. Well, that is beautiful. I mean, you can see it's
Thank
like
you.
all the art. You can't go wrong there. So you're an artist.
Thank
People,
you.
I'm sure
Yeah.
so many people in Pittsburgh have seen your work. But why don't you tell us a little bit, how did you get into art? Did you like art growing up? Did you come from a family of artists or where did that go? How did that go? I should say.
Well, actually, I grew up on the other end of the state, from northeast of Philadelphia.
Okay.
My father was a what he would call a jack of all trades.
Mhm.
And he actually went through a painting period when I was wee little. And I remember actually like peeking over like the table that his oil paintings were on and grabbing some paper towel and dabbling in his oils.
Oh my
And
God.
I just have always been interested in art. Actually, I was a portrait artist. I was fascinated with people's eyes. Like I could just
Wow,
get lost and I could draw an eye for like an hour, just
that's awesome.
little detail and everything. So I grew up a pastel artist. Actually, no, I grew up a pencil artist. And then when I was 19, I was introduced to pastels for the first time.
Oh wow.
So I continued with the portraits until I met my husband, and he is from Bethel Park.
Oh yes.
So he brought me here. And we were actually where his first job was out in the Greensburg area, and I took my little brag book of portraits around to a gallery, and Custom Corners was out in Greengate Mall, and they really liked my work, and they said, "Why don't you set up at the end of our store, and
Yeah.
then do the matting and the framing, and you could do the portraits." So that's kind of what I started doing, and I fell in love with being able to do that for people. Like portraits has always been a happy thing. Like when you did a portrait for somebody, they'd always smile.
Right.
Really, really quiet as a child. And so to see that kind of response to something that I did was that affirmation was doing something I should be doing. So I kind of knew from early on that I was in the right field of line of work, what would end up being my line of work.
That's incredible. It's such
Yeah.
an young age too, for knowing that kind of at a younger age. That's great.
Yeah, it was really funny. I was like, so I was really quiet. So I got like bullied a lot in
Oh,
school. And this one girl actually bloodied my nose in the middle of class. And like I had tried everything. You know how you do that? You try and like make up with people and stuff.
yeah.
It was no matter what I did, it didn't matter. She was just didn't.
Bully.
So I drew a portrait and she stopped bullying me for a couple of months. And then when she started again, I drew her portrait again. It was like at first, it was like that marketing moment when you realize, oh my gosh,
That
this
was genius.
for me. So, and then I was a senior in high school, and this really cool boy from our class wanted his girlfriend's picture done. And I was really shy, and my girlfriend was standing next to me, and she says, "Well, how much are you going to pay her?" And he goes, "Oh,
Oh, I love that.
$2." And so I always consider that my first commission.
I love that. Do you still have the money from that?
I wish.
I know. That's a great story. Well, I'm sure that girl who bullied you is like has the last laugh now, but I think that what a
Yeah.
genius move on your part.
It was just like that knowledge that, like
Yeah,
this is what you need to do.
absolutely.
Portraits. And then in 1989, the owner of Custom Corners, her husband asked me to do a painting of a streetcar.
Okay.
At the time, Tom had been going was at seminary, and I worked downtown, and my bus stop was Kaufman's.
Hmm.
Being new to Pittsburgh, I had already learned that people had met under Kaufman's clock for generations.
Mhm.
So when I made the painting, I decided to do the Kaufman's corner with the clock. and a streetcar. And I was going to call it the meeting place.
Mm.
And I had a neighbor who was actually working with me to kind of help me understand like perspective, because I was a portrait artist.
Yep.
So I had to learn how to make buildings look like they didn't fall over. So he actually was a draftsman. So he was teaching me perspective. And I says, I'm going to call it the meeting place. And he says, oh no, that's not good enough. And I says, but everybody says I'll meet you under Kaufman's clock.
Yeah.
He says, well, call it that.
I love it.
That's a really long title, but okay. So I was like, like 32, 33.
Yeah.
It was like, okay. So I called it Meet Me Under Kaufman's Clock. And I really believe that the title sold half of those prints.
But it's so iconic, especially when you think about like downtown. When I always think of memories like growing up. I know so many people do, especially at like Christmas time. You go down there and all of the windows. You feel just hearing that. It incites such an emotional connection, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
It is for so many people. And I was doing a signing at the gallery for the prints that I had released. And this man came in, and he was a really, really tall, because I'm short. I'm really short. I don't know. You can't tell on Zoom.
Right.
And he's really tall. So, like you take notice of people, and he looks down, and he's got tears in his eyes. And he says, I have to buy this painting. He says, it reminds me of my mom. Because one year I knew I was old enough to run around town, because she told me I could do whatever I wanted as long as I was back underneath the clock at 1 o'clock.
Yes.
And I went home and I told Tom, I says, this is like doing a portrait for the whole city.
Yes.
Just one family at a time, where the portraits were more like that. So if you see behind me, see which way I have to go. Yes. See behind me, that's my first painting. I did that in 1989.
I love it.
And there's a fellow putting a wreath up in the window.
Mm-hmm.
My husband, because I wanted to look like they were just decorating for the holiday season.
Mm.
So he actually stood in my studio and pretended that he was a wreath up, and I just drew him in the painting. So what happened because of that is I have a little painting I can show you.
Yes.
The second painting. Okay, so Kaufman's Clock was the very first building I ever drew in my entire life. Like not even as a kid, just a house. Those house pictures.
Yes. Oh yeah. That's where I peaked. That's as far as I went in my art career.
Yeah, right. Yeah, me too. So I had to learn, like I said, to draw buildings. So my second building was this one. Sorry, I'm not good.
Yes, Cathedral.
The Cathedral of Learning.
Yes.
Okay. And you see that fella sitting on the bench in the yellow jacket?
Yes.
That's my husband.
Oh.
That happened because I had a poor soul sitting there and realized he was getting rained on. So I took the poor soul out, and then my husband said one night when we were coming home from the store, he said, now you have a hole in your composition. And I says, well, when we get home, you put on your raincoat and hat.
Yes.
You in. So he actually became like the Alfred Hitchcock in all of my paintings, where like
I love that.
As a cameo appearance.
That's incredible. And I think you also said some of the other iconic places, Kennywood, there's some other places in your daughter as well that you showed her growing up through the ages.
What happened was, so another painting, which was a first, was I ended up painting Kennywood for, good Lord. I did 10 big paintings, actually 11. I did 10 within the first series. But you'll see the carousel on my easel.
Yes.
That's my first Kennywood. So at the time, I really, really wanted to paint Kennywood because my husband almost proposed to me at Kennywood.
Oh.
Feet, but it was still very memorable. Right. And it was my first actual Pittsburgh date. And so I called Rick Seaback up from WQED, and he had just finished a movie called Kennywood Memories.
Yes. Yep.
He told me to call Mary Lee Rosemeyer, who was in charge of public relations at the time, and to say hi. And so I called her up and I introduced myself. I said I was a Pittsburgh artist. And I really wanted to paint Kennywood. I talked to Rick Seaback. He said hi. And she said that would be wonderful. Mm. And so I started painting Kennywood. Oh. And it was just a glorious time of being able to go in the middle of wintertime and take photographs with the leaves on the trees, and just a lot of fun.
Oh,
So,
I love that. And that's also like, you know, you definitely have an emotion when you think of Kennywood and things like that.
yeah.
You do such a great job of like, I think, like you said, you're painting for the city because I feel like everyone brings their own story to those places. So
I feel like I've documented so many places. My husband and my two girls are in the foreground of the carousel there. And it was because when I was sketching the carousel, my littlest daughter, who was 4 at the time, walked in and said, "Mommy, where are you putting Britty and me?" And it was like, oh my gosh, I can seriously do that.
yeah,
And so everybody in that painting for the very first time are all people that met on opening day, you know, all my friends up, and we closed down the carousel and we hopped on. And Tony Sacramento, who was Mr. Kennywood, he actually met us there to take us onto the carousel as well. He had had a stroke prior to us meeting, but he worked himself up and he got himself up on that carousel again. And he always rode it backwards and kind of leaning out.
right.
And you'll see him riding it backwards and kind of leaning out. So
That's awesome. Well, that's a great story. And I love that you incorporated like your family throughout. And what are some of the other places? And I do want to get into, I know you also do some charity for some, is it the Cancer Society? Yeah, I want to.
Cancer Society, yeah. I actually, for the Cancer Society, I was their artist for 17 years.
Yes.
I was actually approached at the Home and Garden show is one of my favorite shows. And this woman came and asked if I would do the Christmas card for the Pittsburgh chapter of the American Cancer Society. And I had sold out of one of my paintings called Wishing Under the Horns Tree. And a lot of people were asking about a horns painting. Just let me do a new horns painting. I did one called A Holiday Tradition.
Oh.
And they sold out of the cards in the first month that it was available. And then for 17 years, I did cards. I did the painting, and I would give them the design for the 3 months prior to Christmas. And so that they made all the money from all the cards and stuff like that. And during that 17 years, they made $750,000 just from my Christmas cards.
Wow.
Were used for prevention and research. So yeah, it's amazing. And really sad when they closed it down. I kind of cried a little bit. They gave me flowers. You know?
Oh my God, I'm gonna start crying. That's incredible. Like what a incredible.
It was amazing. It was an amazing thing to do. And I would have people call me. I had this one cancer patient who was supposed to be terminal, and she didn't die. And she was 93 at the time that she called me. And she said that she had my painting of Kaufman's Clock up on her wall where she does dishes. And she thinks about me every day because of that, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So there's some neat stories behind that. And I do donate prints and items and stuff like that for different charities and stuff.
And I know you mentioned the Home and Garden show. And are there any other shows that you love attending? I'm sure it's like connecting with audience on a personal level, stuff like
that. And you know what? And all the different shows that I do, like I do Ligonier Days, and you meet a group of people out there that you wouldn't meet like at the home show. And, you know, so you meet from people throughout the year. It's like old home week every time I go to a show. And it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you since last year. Probably number one favorite show that is not in the spring during the home show. The holiday market down in Market Square. I absolutely love that show. I'm there at a minimum of 30 days. I think we were there a maximum of 38. Depends on how Thanksgiving falls.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And you're cold. However, I finally figured out how to stay warm after about 7 of those 8-9 years that we were there. And you just meet so many wonderful people, and it's such a great time. It's like my Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm there every day. And I met, can I show you?
Yes. Yes.
I met.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So we did 10 paintings together.
Oh my gosh.
And he would stop by my booth. Talk about we would talk about all these great ideas.
Yeah.
And so I just finished the series. There's 10 paintings altogether. And 2 weeks before Christmas, thank you, COVID,
I
two
know.
Christmas, this came out. So it didn't have its due.
So next year,
Sold 90 copies in 2 weeks.
oh, I think so. Next year, I think you better start making stuff more now because
I hope so.
I think you're going to sell out very quickly next year, 100% on that.
Yeah, and they come in ornaments too, which
That's
is
beautiful.
yeah, they have little stories on the back. But the Santa series, it was just so much fun, like brainstorming and then coming up with the ideas and putting it all together. And oh, it's just wonderful. And Santa would sign the backs of paintings and stuff like that for me and sign the fronts of things for me as well.
Yeah,
Just
you can't beat that. That's incredible. And don't think I asked, and that made me think of that back to like childhood. Were you inspired or are you inspired by any artist now or then that you look to as, either for technique or just like overall inspiration?
when I was a child, I had two favorite artists. One was Norman Rockwell
Yes.
because he told the story with paintings, and I kind of feel like I grew into that.
That's exactly, I thought of that when I see your stuff. That's interesting.
Yeah. The other one was Monet because of his color.
Yeah.
Gosh, color just inspires me.
Wow.
And so and it's funny because back in like 2010, I started doing plein air landscapes. So I was outside doing landscapes all over the country.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of felt like I'm touching my Monet.
Yes, you were. Absolutely. Well, that's probably do you feel different when you're doing different things, like when you're outside and landscape or people? Like, is there one that you prefer or is it just really dependent on you?
Portraits will always be my favorite. And what was nice about the Santa series is I could incorporate Santa and some city together. For instance, like on this one, in the background is my painting. One of my paintings, a Kaufman's clock. So it's like a painting.
Yes.
Like in a living room setting in that so I'm able to incorporate everything together. So portraits is my love.
Yeah.
Landscapes, other than the frustrating thing of what to do with all that green, once I figured that out, landscapes are very therapeutic. They're calming, they're pretty, they're fun. If you don't like that rock, you don't have to paint it in.
Right.
The Pittsburgh stuff, it's hard. It's hard work. Can I show you a piece?
Yes. I was just going to ask her, what have we been working on? I was hoping you would give us a little intel.
Okay, so I did show somebody on a Zoom call like an hour ago.
Okay.
And the color's really bad.
That's okay. We'll understand that. Yeah.
Okay. So what you're going to see is it's called the Ship Hotel, the Grandview Ship Hotel. It actually burned down right after 9/11. It was closed for a while though.
Okay.
Used to be up on the summit and on Route 30 going out towards Bedford.
Okay.
I'm painting this for a client. And so what you're going to see is I actually had started with a small pencil. I turned that small pencil into a pen and ink. If you can see in the back,
yeah, I see it on the left.
Pen and ink, with the Kinko's, enlarged it.
Yeah.
Transferred it onto this museum board. Then I resketched it on the museum board. Then I did a watercolor underpainting. And then I'm doing my pastel because this is what I work with. I work with like pastel chalk.
Beautiful. I love that.
Chalk. Wow. So what you're going to see is the sky's done, the roof's done, the flags are done, the background's done, but the Ship Hotel and the cars in the parking lot in front, it's just a watercolor wash.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
Let's see if we can do this.
Oh my God.
That's why did I ever do this right? There we go.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so you see how some of it's a little different looking than the other?
Wow. Now let me ask you, that's beautiful. I can't wait to see the finished product. How long does it take from like beginning to end typically? I know I'm sure it changes.
I've been working, okay, so that's another thing. Like when I paint, a lot of it is thought. It's thinking. So I've spent a lot of time, like I go back on the resources like over a year ago. I've been looking at doing this. Okay. It is for a client, and actually his father and his mother in the gold car in the front.
Love it.
And his sister are backed by a Bug that he used to have, a Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I have my husband and my grandchildren looking out over the wall.
I love how you do that. I think that's so clever and so special.
Oh, thank you. I actually had people say, "Are you going to start putting your granddaughters in?"
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to be like,
this is their first one. This is their first one. So the process, so it goes on for a while, but right now I'm painting. So the painting will go quicker now. It used to take me, just the painting part used to take me at least 8 weeks.
Wow.
And then I gotten it to 5. And now I actually think I might get it down a little bit less than 5 weeks of painting, because I've done so much seen it like 6 times, and now I'm painting it. You know what I mean? So I know what's going on. I'm familiar with it. What was challenging about this is it had burnt down. I could go to where it was.
Right. Wow.
And that's all that's left.
Isn't that incredible?
But I can't, I had to figure out everything. Like the Lincoln Highway experience, there's a sign, a red sign on the side. We couldn't figure out all the words because the photography back then wasn't great.
Sure.
But all our heads together and finally figured out what all the words are going to be on that sign. The Gold Avanti, the first car in the painting that you saw, one of my collectors, I said, does anybody know anybody with an Avanti? Anybody?
Yeah.
Not a response. And here there was a fella up in Sarver, and Tom and I drove up there, perfect strangers.
That's incredible.
He had the car. Like, evidently there's a point system with cars.
Right.
Out of 400, this car was a $399.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It was like a piece of art.
That's wow.
So excited. We were so excited to see it. And I was able to take different photographs for it. So like everything has to be put together because you can't go there and set anything up, Right. There's nautical flags running from pole to pole. And I have a friend who's a sailor, because again, I'm from the other side of this. Yep. And I called him up and I said, there's nautical flags. Now I was a sailor too. I knew they meant something. Yes. Like, what do they mean? And he says, well, they're actually the alphabet, and they could say anything like help,
Right, yeah.
Right. So on top, from flagpole to flagpole reads the Ship Hotel.
Oh, I love that.
He actually went into paint and he did it with the words under it so I could see it. And then I drew them straight and then I angled them like wind was blowing. So anyway, like I said, it's just, you put so much into it to pull it all together, and it's exciting,
It is. No, I love it. It's so, I could literally talk to you all day. But if we want, I'm sure if we want to promote you, not like you need promoted, but people want to buy your work. Is it a website or
yes,
one way to be in touch with you?
It's my name.
Okay.
Barnicott.com. Okay. So LINDABARNICOTT.com.
Well, we will definitely link that in here, Linda.
Thank you. And then if you ever want to do a second interview, we could talk about Bill Mazeroski, Frank O'Hara.
Oh my gosh, for sure. It'll be like part 2. Thank you so much for being here today, Linda. Keep up the good work. I can't wait to see what things.
It's really a pleasure meeting you, Courtney. Please come see me at one of my shows.
I'd love to. I absolutely will. So thank you so much. Enjoy.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Bye.